transporting soldiers from there to here, cargo. I was a truck driver and I was driving all over England. Of course in England you have to drive on the left side. So I had to get used to that, or I had to get used to driving on the right side when I got back to the States, because I came out of a filling station and I started driving on the left-hand side of the road. I said, whoa, I'm not in England, let's get back on the right side of the road. So I was in England for about, the end of July. Of course, my oldest son was born 31st of July, so this all happened while I was overseas, and even though he was born, because I didn't get any mail until in August. And so I was there in August, September, and then late September, October, I was shipped to Scotland, Glasgow. That's up high, about 200-300 feet up on the cliffs there. You can see the ocean pretty well from up there. And was on the Queen Mary to come back to the States as a survivor. And we was packed like sardines. And must have been thousands and thousands of us in there going back to the States. One day it was hot than heck because we was in the Gulf Stream. The next day was cold because we was close to Iceland, trying to dodge away from the submarines. And we finally got into New York, but it was a much faster trip than it was going up. I think it took about a week, where it took a month to get to England. So I got the survivor's leave of 30 days while I was over in the States. Then I got assigned to another LST, picked it up in Evansville, Indiana. No, I went to Chicago first. Then we picked it up in Evansville, went through New Orleans, went through the Panama Canal. That was interesting, the Panama Canal, where they drive you into these locks, and then they raise the water so that you can get into the next one, and the reverse if you're going the other way. Then we hit the Pacific Ocean, and that was just as calm as a lake. They talk about the ocean being peaceful. It is. The Pacific is very peaceful. And we went to San Diego, and then we went to Hawaii, and I went to Pearl Harbor and saw the ships that were sunk over there, and took a tour of the bluffs. And I was doing pretty good there. I was a radioman second class by then, because I got rated second class. Being a survivor of the first, I was treated like a king. That was good. I was the postman on board ship. I was the first one to get off the ship to see the shores. But that broke down with I coughed up blood. And when I was in the sun, that's what would bring it up. So I'd been coming down with TB, didn't even know it. And you get TB from overworking, not getting enough sleep, being hard on your body, and not getting proper. So I spent, so I was in Hawaii, the hospital, and then they shipped me to Oakland, California, where I was hospitalized there for 7 or 8 months. And then they discharged me as cured. Of course, I broke down again 5 years later because I didn't believe in to take care of my health. I'd been working for Sears Roebuck as a serviceman. And I went to Oakland Naval Hospital where they cured me. And after 8-10 months over there, I couldn't take it no more, so I went home, stayed 5 months, went back in to check, see how I was doing, and they said, "You're doing great. Now all we got to do is open you up and take off that part out of your lungs so you don't break down again." I said, "Oh, no, you don't." So I went out again, and they told me, well, if I could stay from not breaking down again for 20 years, I could consider myself cured. So that was about 50 years ago. So I think I licked that one. So
Which makes you how old today?
I'm 91, going to be 92 this summer. So I've lived a long life, but I stopped smoking back in 1952 one day. And I took care of my health from then on. I started my own music store because I was a musician and loved music, and Keene does not offer much of any accessories or things for guitars. They ask you, what is a guitar? They didn't know. And that's another story. But I retired myself 20 some odd years ago, and I'm still playing 2-3 times a week, not for the money, for the entertainment of the old folks, because they love the kind of music that I was doing then and the kind of music we had back then. And that's what I've been promoting: guitars, guitar music, country music, bluegrass music, because rock and roll came in. I accepted that and did some rock and roll. But I still love and prefer the country music. But you got to get used to it and listen to it before you can appreciate it. So the old folks in nursing homes that are younger than me and not as handy, they're all handicapped, and I'm still doing great. But I attribute it because I'm doing what I love, what I enjoy, and that's playing music, and playing music to people who enjoy that type of music. And we play out professionally off and on for money, but most of the time that's not important. We play for the fun of it, for the love of it. Any questions? Okay, ladies for gents.
I don't know if this isn't related, but I just wanted to know how you met your wife.
How I met my wife. Oh, that's interesting. Well, I was playing in the Keene area. I'd been in the West Swansea CC camps, and my car had broken down after I got out of the CC camps. I was still playing with a group in the Keene area, and my car broke down, so I had to go play. So I hitchhiked from Nashua, that's where I lived at the town, to Keene, and I got a ride from a fella in Dublin that lived across from where my wife lived. So he dropped me off in front of my wife's house, and he went to his house. And I kept seeing this girl looking out the door curtain. She looked kind of cute, you know. I said, I wonder if this could be my calling or whatever, you know. So after half an hour waiting outside for cars to go by so that I get a ride into Keene, nobody stopped. Her brother decided they were going to Keene anyway, so let's pick up the poor guy, give him a ride to Keene. She told her mother, don't let him sit next to me. So she was in the back seat, her mother, and they had me on the side with her mother. So she was playing hard to get, I guess. So on the way to Keene, her mother told me that her son played guitar and her daughter played guitar. That was interesting. So I says, well, I play in Keene or on the other side of Keene there every week, and I come back. Sometimes I stay overnight at some friends I had in Keene. About stopping in on a Sunday and having a little jam session on my return to Nashua. Sure. So the following week my car was all going, so I used my car and went to Keene, and on the way back I stopped in around 2 o'clock, I guess, in the afternoon, and we had a little jam session. She played guitar and sang. She had a high voice. I was that impressed with her voice, but she played guitar and she was pretty. And her brother played guitar and he was pretty good too. So I asked her if she'd like to go to the the dances where I played on Saturday night. She asked her mother, she says, yeah, it's okay, because they were cousins where I used to stay. Because I usually pick up her cousin and a lot of their brothers and cousins, and I used to have a car load. So the following week I stopped in, picked her up, and it was snowing, it was in the wintertime. So she sat down the other end of the front seat over there. And I told her, I said, you can sit closer, you know. So not looking where I was going, I plowed right into the snowbank. Lucky her neighbor had a Jeep, so he just pulled me out of there, and we went the rest of the way into Keene. The moral of this story, don't take your eyes off the road. So anyway, we got up to her cousin, and she got in, and the rest of the crowd, and we all went into where we played, the dance hall. And her cousin asked her, she said, did you bring any money? She said, no. She says, well, you won't pay your way in, you know, because she thought she was going to, well, I guess that's the end of it. That's the end of the, well, that's how I met her anyway. I married her 2 years later, I guess, or was it a year later, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dean. Have a good weekend.
My great uncle was also in the war too. He was a scout.
Oh, yeah. Well, we needed them.
Yeah. At one point, he slept under the tanks because they were so tired. And when they woke up, all the tanks were gone. They didn't even hear them.
Oh, that's,
My mom and my stepdad run on that.
what was his name?
Jack. Jack Floyd. I'll give you my number.
Okay. I used to travel the federal often.
Right, here we get together. Nice and close. Big smile, please.
Oh,
Twice.
you're welcome.
Big smiles, nice and close.
Oh, thank you.
Have a good day.
I never studied hard. Yes, we should study. Big forts here. Big forts. How about the two around?
Susan, did you want to get a picture, Mr. Jean, with
You know, sometimes,
Miss Pelletier, maybe?
or maybe with you.
Either, sure,
I
whatever
like
you
to
wish.
walk around, and if I see things going on in the classroom, I just go in and
We
take
should
a
turn
shot.
because they were talking for a minute. It was a good one. You can do.
So come on over here. I'd like to get a picture of you talking to the student. I'm Susan Cloutier, by the way, I do the yearbook.
Yearbook.
And your name is? Jerry. Jerry. And this was, were you, the Pacific or the Gold Star? Is that right?
Yeah.
Check purse.
I was there, I saw that not long ago.
Yes.
After I got survived that, they shipped me out.
Wow, that's
I
pretty.
got as
When
far
I,
as Hawaii.
when I went there, I couldn't stop crying, and you don't expect it. Okay, let's just get a little bit closer. Awesome.
Do we smile?
If you'd like to. That looks good. Let me just check, because there's a little bit of a glare in the back. Oh, actually, that came out, let me do one more, but that came out really nice. Jerry. Do you live in Merrimack?
Yeah.
That's great. I wish I had stayed. I have a very strong interest
Oh,
in
yeah.
World War II. My mother's husband was at Pearl Harbor,
Yeah.
but he was in the Army,
Okay.
so he wasn't near the shores, yeah. But he had a lot of stories to tell about that. Okay, so very, very good. I got that for the yearbook. And what was your name?
Stephanie Parker.
Okay, very good. Hey, wasn't this great news?
What's that?
Well, I like to show things that are going on in the classroom.
Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah, she loves to get pictures all around. You know, just kind of give kids like a little memory, you know, in that yearbook of, you know, snapshot of the past, so.
Nah.
I survived June or July. I was with radios. So radio was what I was interested in doing, so I joined and I was the first one that buckle down and learn everything I could so I could make a petty officer third class training. But it was a short course because we was trained to go on LCIs. Now LCIs is a much smaller ship. It's a mostly for infantry, and we went on cruises training in the bay there. I forget what they call it, north of Norfolk. And it was cold, and they had oil heaters, and it stunk. Oh, it was miserable. So I went home for Christmas and had planned to get married right then on Christmas, but they only gave me a leave for 3 or 4 days for that weekend. But he told me if I was going to be married, let him know he would give me an extension. So I decided we were going to get married, and I asked for an extension, but never got the reply back. But I took it anyway. So I got married, then went back, and then everything didn't go well, but I never got the okay to take that extension. The reason I said that is because from an LCI, I was trained in Norfolk, and I was assigned to an LST, which was a much bigger ship and much, well, most of my radio men were 8 and 9 months of training, and I had 8 or 9 weeks of training. So I had a petty officer's rating, and my radio men were just seamen, and they knew more about radios than I did, but I had the age on them, I think. Because I was 22 at the time, and they were 18, 19, or 20. So being assigned to an LSD, I found it tough, so I got away from it so I could get some more schooling, and I did some practicing on my code so I could receive instead of 8, 9, or 10, or 12 words per minute, so I could get it up to 28 or 32 words per minute. So after a series of a few months, I was assigned to another LSD crew, which happened to be the 133. Now, the 133 went to Boston in the spring of 1944. And we went to Boston, to Halifax, Nova Scotia, and St. John's, New Brunswick, and then we started across the ocean. And there was cold, and all of the side railings were icing up with ice, so we had to go out and chop the ice if we get too heavy with ice on it. And plus we had an LCD on top of our ship. So we had to chip ice, then we got into the waves. The waves were 100 feet high. And every time we would climb a wave, the screw, which is a propeller, would come out of the water. And when it got down and back into the water, the whole ship would vibrate like it shook you up. And every time somebody would open a latch, we call them, that's the doors, you know. Every time they close a hatch, it would resonate right through the whole ship. And we thought we were getting hit all the time because there were submarines, and we were way up in close to Greenland to keep away from the U-boats. Of course, we was in a big convoy, and we had the cruisers, not the cruisers, the destroyers and destroyer escorts on the outside watching for submarines. So So it was quite a long trip, almost 3 or 4 weeks, almost a month, from the United States up over Ireland, down in between Ireland and England. Then we arrived in Weymouth Harbour, then Plymouth Harbour, and all of the coast cities in the southern part of England, where we did a lot of maneuvering, practicing, and landings. And in between our exercises, we encountered a lot of mines. They were mining the harbors all the time, so they would sneak in with Pt boats or U-boats and stuff like that. And they would find, so we was always on the alert for mines. Then came May, and we went to Southampton in England and loaded up with troops, tanks, and we unloaded our LCT when we got to England anyway. And we knew then that there was no more communication. We knew then that we was heading for the invasion. And that was the first part of June. So we were supposed to get out in the 5th of June, but the weather was so bad they held it up another day. So we was traveling between England and France, which is it's about 50 or 100 miles. I don't know. It's a long ways. And we was in the convoy, and we arrived close to the beach on D-Day around 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. The first wave had already gone in at 6 o'clock. Of course, the airplanes had gone in and bombarded the coastline to make it easier for the soldiers to get in. So we got orders to head right into the Omaha Beach, the rough one, the tough one. So we was within a mile of the beach, and being a radio man, we had secured the radio, and I was able to watch and observe what was going on pretty well. So I was looking out of those round glass windows they have in the, been so long I forget what they call these, wheelhouse light. Yeah, that's a wheelhouse. So I was watching, and I could see those 88s firing on the different boats as they were going in. And you would see, I saw one LCI get hit, and I saw one guy flying and falling in the water. And it was suicide. And within, before we got less than half a mile from the beach, a destroyer came between us and the beach, and he started pounding on those 88s that was in the cliffs over there, and pounding all of our ships as they were getting in. Then we got orders to stop and to turn back, that it was suicide, that it was impossible to get in. So we got out about within less than a mile from the beach, and we anchored right there while the fleet was all about 5 miles out. So we was all by ourselves. And first thing I knew, a lot of the rhinos, that's platforms with well, anyway, they had propellants, you know, to steer the so we had 3 of those rhinos tied up alongside of us. First thing I knew, we had over 100 wounded on board ship. So I went down to where my bunk was, and there was a wounded person in there, and it was a bloody mess. We even had a German prisoner speaking French, I asked, I tried to speak in French, and someone didn't understand that, he didn't speak English. So he was German, all right. So I went back to the radio shack and we just laid down in the radio shack to rest or sleep over there. But before I knew it, we had about a dozen doctors on board ship, and they were having an operating room right on our ship, and they were trying to save as many as they could of our wounded that were coming back from the beach on these small boats, LCTs, and all kinds of platoons. And so it was kind of quiet until 11 o'clock. Of course, being in the north part of Europe over there, you have a very short night. The days are long. It's 11 o'clock or more at night before the sun goes down, and the sun comes up around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So as soon as the sun went down around midnight, planes came over and tried to stifle us. We had these balloons on a wire to keep them from coming too close to us, because if they hit one of those, well, they could do damage to themselves. But we watched when the rest of the airplanes came over to bomb the fleet. It was like a, well, you talk about going to see the fireworks. That was the biggest firework display I think I've seen in my life. There was traces and guns from 4,000 or 5,000 ships blasting up at all of these planes coming over. So that went on every hour or every half hour that we come in for another run. So we didn't get much sleep, but we rested in between hits. And so the next morning, first thing we knew, the battleships opened up on the beach. So they were blasting, the battleships and big ships, they were blasting these big guns. Their shells were going right over us, and you could hear them whistle as they went over us to hit the beach. So that was another exciting, well, it wasn't that exciting, but it was in a way, because I was glad when they took a break and rested, because after 20 minutes or half an hour, they would take a break and slow down, then they would stop again in an hour later. So we did that every hour for about 3 or 4 hours that morning, and then we got orders at 11 o'clock to go into the beach again. So we got rid of all our pontoons and all the things that were tied up alongside of us, and we got ready we could try and get in again. So we got close to the beach, and it looked pretty rough. And our skipper was a pretty good, smart man. He had come up from the ranks, and he knew his stuff. I got to give him credit for a lot of things that we did. So anyway, instead of trying to get in the worst part of it, somehow he veered right and started running along the coastline. So I noticed that we was running around the coastline, and then off and on he would try and get in, then back out again and go down some more. So I started thinking maybe our captain or skipper was chicken, you know. Why don't we get in and get this over with? So we did that 2 or 3 times, and then we came up with a river. And after we got by the river, he slowed down and went in again. Well, I didn't know why he went in, but this time I found out they opened up the bow, and they let one of our sailors dive in the water and swim to shore. Then he started walking down the coastline to see where a good spot would be for us to land. This is all the stuff that I found out after, when we got together in yeah, in 1990 or something like that. We got together in Nashville about 20 years ago. Anyway, coming down the coastline, looking for a place to get in. The skipper was keeping the communication with the sailor that he let out on shore. Then we came to a place where it was a hill, and that's where we went. So that, I don't know, it was kind of a sheltered place to get in. So we went in, and we got a stern anchor that we drop so that we can pull ourselves off the beach after we unloaded our cargo. So we went in, and then the guy that was in the bow said there was mines ahead. So the captain or the skipper held the ship back and pulled on the stern anchor at the same time to